Hello everybody, my name is Cara, and today I'm here with my most anticipated releases for 2019. Lightning Round edition? A lot of the ones that I watch focus a lot on the synopsis of the book, which I think is reasonable. But for me personally, and hopefully for some of you guys, when I'm deciding what books I'm interested in picking up, usually what will draw me towards certain things is not necessarily the whole summary of the book, but more like buzzwords or character tropes or like the setting or things like that. And this is also great because I have a ton of books I want to talk about, and I think by just keeping it to almost like bullet point format, it'll give you guys a clear idea of whether you want to learn more about a book. I will be sure to link all of the Goodreads pages down below in the description so that you can read more about them if you want to. But this way, if you're a reader like me who tends to enjoy books more the less detailed synopsis you know, then hopefully you will still find some things to get excited about. So starting off with some honorable mentions, these are some books that I am definitely excited about, but that I think you probably have already heard a lot about. And those are The Wicked King by Holly Black, The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan, Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, Enchantée by Gira Trellis, and The Beautiful by Renee Audier. Okay, so starting off in January, The Girl King by Mimi Yu comes out on January 8th. And in this book, we have two sisters who become unwitting rivals for a throne when their father, the king, unexpectedly gives the throne to, I think, one of their male cousins. These two sisters sort of become enemies without really wanting to, and I think one of them has to team up with the last wolf shapeshifter in the land. Also, I'm very sorry, I might be referring to my notes at some points because I do want to make sure I get the details correct. Then on January 15th, we have Echo North by Joanna Ruth Meyer, and kind of what I'm getting from the summary of this one is that there's some Beauty and the Beast vibes or some East of the Sun, West of the Moon vibes, and it feels like a very wintry type fantasy, which honestly for me is all I really need to know. Also coming out on January 15th is Unmarriageable by Sonia Kamal, and the only thing I know about this one is that it's Pride and Prejudice set in Pakistan. And that is all I need to know. On January 29th, we have A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, and I think this one also has some Beauty and the Beast vibes. There's a cursed prince who I think has to fall in love, or he has to find somebody to return his love in order to free him from his beast shape. But another amazing thing about this one is that the female main character, I believe, has cerebral palsy, and I don't think I've ever come across a book that had that in the protagonist before, so that's really exciting. And another interesting thing about this synopsis is it feels like it might be a blend between urban fantasy and high fantasy, because I think the female character lives in our world, but then I don't know if she crosses over to like a real fantastical land or what. On February 5th, we have Song for a Whale by Lynn Kelly, and in this book we have a deaf main character who finds out that there is one whale in the world who vibrates at a different frequency than all of the other whales, and so he is unable to communicate. And even though this girl, like, she has a very supportive family, I think, she really connects to this whale and feels kind of his loneliness and having difficulty communicating. And she decides to go on a journey to try and find this whale and kind of, I think, what that means for her and her situation and her experiences in her life. And I can already tell by the little I know about this one, this book is going to make me cry. I can already feel it. Also coming out on February 5th is A Sprinkle of Spirits by Anna Mariano, and this is actually a sequel to A Dash of Trouble, which I read earlier in the year, and I absolutely loved that book, and I am so excited for this sequel. Basically, all you need to know about this series is that there is baking and cooking magic and a Mexican-American family, and it is just so wonderful. I believe the premise for this second book focuses on some ghosts that are coming back, and our main character Leonora has to kind of go on an adventure with her friends and figure out how to stop this from happening. Also on February 5th, we have Courting Darkness by Robin LaFavors. This is the fourth book in the His Fair Assassin series. I've seen some people say that you can read this without reading the original trilogy, and I really don't think that's true. I would recommend reading the original series, which I really enjoy. And this series overall is all about assassin nuns who kill people in the name of their god of death. And it is wonderful. Definitely a really interesting setting too, because I think it takes place in, is it like 13th century Brittany or something like that? Like, it's a time period in a setting that I really don't read a lot about, so I really enjoy that. Coming out on February 12th, we have Watch Us Rise by Renee Watson and Ellen Hagen. And this is a contemporary novel about two girls, I think they were best friends, and they formed this kind of feminist club at their school. But then the club gets shut down and they decide they're going to do something about that. And from the information I got on the Goodreads page, it seems like it's going to be very intersectional in its feminism. I believe one of the main characters is black, and it's all about like good allyship and fighting back against microaggressions in particular. Coming out on February 26th, we have The Beauty of the Moment by Tanaz Bethina. And this sounds like a really wonderful teen rom-com, and I think there's going to be a focus on art. I believe the female main character, she really wants to pursue that as her passion, and her family's not terribly supportive. And I also want to mention that this book is Own Voices representation for Zoroastrianism. Also on February 26th, we have An Affair of Poisons by Addie Thorley. This one follows a main character who is part of a poisoners guild, I think, and she has grown up among them and has worked with them all her life, and then they actually poison the king, I believe the Sun King, because it's kind of a French-inspired setting, I think, and she starts to realize that all of these things she's been told about the people she has grown up with and the people she has helped so long might not actually be true, and that she might actually be on the side of the villains. So she takes her poisoning skills and starts using them to help people and to heal people. But of course, after the Sun King is murdered, that changes a lot of things, and I believe she has to team up with a bastard prince. Also on February 26th, we have We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Mejia, and in this setting, we have a school for noble girls who are trained to basically have one of two purposes in men's homes, and that is to either take care of their children or to run their household, and that's kind of the two options for these noble women. And we follow a main character who has actually her papers are forged, her papers of nobility, and it also has a forbidden love aspect that I believe is between two women. From what I have seen from some reviews or from descriptions, I'm pretty sure it's a female-female romance. Moving into March, we have Beware the Night by Jessica Fleck, and that comes out on March 12th. The main character has grown up on an island where they make sacrifices to the sun, and that kind of keeps their community safe and thriving. And then one day the sacrifice is her grandfather. Like, that's who is supposed to be sacrificed to the sun, and she starts to question what she's been taught, and like who is really the danger in this community. Next we have The Bird King by G. Willow Wilson, and that also comes out on March 12th. And for a few of these, including this one, I'm actually going to read you a quotation from the blurb because I don't want to get anything incorrect. But the main characters of this novel are described as Fatima, a concubine in the royal court of Granada, the last emirate of Muslim Spain, and her dearest friend Hassan, the palace mapmaker. And I believe this is set during the time of the Spanish Inquisition, so I think this is a historical fantasy, maybe? On March 19th, we have Night Music by Jen Marie Thorne. And this novel features an interracial romance, and I believe the African-American character is looking to break into classical music, and he's incredibly talented, but that is a very white-dominated field. And so I believe it covers those issues, and he does fall in love with his benefactor's daughter, who is white. And I think it's going to be about that dynamic and the worry that he feels about how this is going to look to people, and I hope that it's going to explore that really thoughtfully and really well. I have read one of Jen Marie Thorne's other contemporary novels, The Wrong Side of Right, which I did really enjoy, so I'm hopeful that this one is going to be handled with sensitivity. Also on March 19th, we have Never Contented Things by Sarah Porter, and really the only thing I know about this one is Dark Fae. I'm excited. The synopsis did sort of remind me of The Cruel Prince a little bit, but it's about some adopted siblings, and I believe they go to fairyland, and the prince of the fairy kind of becomes obsessed with them. And I don't know too much about it. I do love that cover. And I read like a couple of early reviews on Goodreads, and they're not too favorable. But one of the things somebody did say is, whatever you are expecting from this book, I guarantee it's much, much weirder. Which, like, I'm into that. And also on March 19th, we have Sherwood by Megan Spooner. This is, I have like seen a couple people with arcs of this one, and like, I'm so jealous. I really, really want to read this one because I absolutely adored Hunted by Megan Spooner, which was one of her other standalone novels. And the only thing I know about this one is that Maid Marian has to take on the mantle of Robin Hood after Robin is killed. Moving into May, we have The Candle and the Flame by Nafisa Assad, and that comes out on May 14th. This is a desert fantasy featuring jinn, which are a couple of things I really, really love. And I'm also going to read an excerpt from the blurb on this one. An immersive tale of magic and the importance of names, fiercely independent women, and perhaps most importantly, the work for harmony within a city of 1,000 cultures and cadences. Like, yes, I am all about every single bit of that. Also on May 14th, we have We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal, and I'm also going to read a blurb for this one. Zafira is the hunter, disguising herself as a man when she braves the cursed forest of the Ars to feed her people. Nasir is the Prince of Death, assassinating those foolish enough to defy his autocratic father, the king. If Zafira was exposed as a girl, all of her achievements would be rejected. If Nasir displayed his compassion, his father would punish him in the most brutal of ways. That character dynamic just sounds fantastic. I'm always really intrigued by those types of characters, you know, where it's like they have this compassion that they've had to hide. I think that can be a really interesting dynamic. Also coming out on May 14th is Don't Date Rosa Santos by Nina Moreno. It is an own voices story about a Cuban-American girl, and I think there's, like, she may have been kind of cursed by the ocean, possibly, because I think bad things happen to anyone who dates her, or maybe like they end up breaking up or something like that. I've tried not to learn too much about this one because I just want to go in blind, but I know that Rocky from Blonde with the Book got an arc of this one and absolutely adored it, so that is high praise. I am very excited for it. And on May 28th we have I Love You So Moshi by Sarah Kuhn. This is about our main character Kimi, and she absolutely loves art, loves fashion, and she gets invited to spend some time with her grandparents in Kyoto, Japan, and while she's there, she meets a cute med student who apparently moonlights as a mochi mascot or something. So this just sounds really adorable and wonderful, and also like it's gonna have some really beautiful explorations of heritage and culture and family. Moving into June, we have The Beholder by Anna Bright. This is like a female-centric odyssey. It's a gender-bent odyssey, and she gets told by her mother that she needs to find a husband, and she sets her off on a boat, and she's like, if you don't come back with a husband, just don't bother coming back at all. By the way, that one comes out on June 4th. Also on June 4th, we have Blood Heir by Emily Wen Zhao. It's a fantasy story that is inspired by the story of Anastasia, and there is blood magic involved. And I believe the Anastasia character is framed for murder, and then, I quote, a handsome yet dangerous underground crime lord has to help her find the true murderer and clear her name in exchange for her alliance. Also on June 4th, we have Ordinary Girls by Blair Thornburg, and that is a modern Sense and Sensibility retelling. The authors that this is compared to is Jenny Han and Sarah Milnowski, both of whom I have really enjoyed. Now moving into July, on July 9th we have The Storm Crow by Jaylene Josephson, and our main character is really grief-stricken after her mother's death, so while her sister is ruling the country, our main character is kind of just devastated. And the magic system in this world I think is based around crows or crow eggs, and those were all wiped out by this invading country, and then I think one of these sisters actually finds a crow egg. This book also has a trigger warning for depression, and that is actually listed in the Goodreads synopsis, which I really like that authors and publishers are starting to do that. On July 30th, we have Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Project Runway meets Mulan in this sweeping YA fantasy about a young girl who poses as a boy to compete for the role of Imperial Tailor, and embarks on an impossible journey to sew 3 magic dresses from the sun, the moon, and the stars. And there's a lot of Chinese folklore influences, and the 3 dresses thing actually reminds me of a fairy tale called Aller Lyra, which is a really weird one. So I don't know how much of that is going to be in this one, but I am really excited. Okay, we only have 6 more books to talk about, you guys. On August 6th, we have House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. And this is basically what sounds like the 12 Dancing Princesses, but a murder mystery, because these sisters actually start getting killed, and the main character has to figure out who is killing them and why this is happening, and there's like some kind of curse on them, and I think she's seeing visions of ghosts from people. On August 6th, we have Gods of Jade and Sorrow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Again, like there's so many beautiful covers, but like just appreciate this one for a second. The Mayan god of death sends a young woman on a harrowing, life-changing journey in this dark fairy tale inspired by Mexican folklore for readers of The Song of Achilles and Uprooted. Like, yes. I have not read The Song of Achilles, but I did read Circe by Madeline Miller earlier this year and absolutely adored it, and I read Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia earlier this year, and that was fantastic, so I'm just so looking forward to this one. Also on August 6th, we have The Bone Garden by Heather Kastner, illustrated by Matt Saunders, and this sounds like a really dark and spooky middle grade, which is a subgenre, I guess, or a combination that I really enjoy and that I think doesn't get enough attention. Like, I think for some people who are hesitant to try middle grade because I think it's not going to be like enough story for them, I think like kind of the darker, heavier ones are really a good place to start. And this one we follow a main character named Ariel, and I think she's a creation. Like she's not like a real person, quote unquote, and her creator is like this evil witch type character, but this girl, like Ariel, really tries hard to please her, and her job is, I think, to gather bone dust. But then finally Ariel decides that she's going to run away in order to really understand this magic and who she is and where she came from, and this sounds like it's going to be very creepy but also potentially very like emotionally devastating, so I'm excited. Also on August 6th, we have Rise of the Dragon Moon by Gabrielle K. Byrne, and we follow Princess Toli, and she lives in a kingdom where the dragons have kind of taken over, and I think they actually killed her father, and then one day her mother is actually kidnapped, and she and her sister and I think their best friend go on a journey in order to rescue their mother, and I believe they have to team up with one of the dragons, who of course they have been raised to despise and fear. On August 19th, we have The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee, and our main character Jo Kwan works as a lady's maid, but by night she actually writes a like women's advice column. She starts using that to tackle social justice issues, and that gets her some unwanted attention. I believe she starts on a quest to find her missing parents, and there's like this mysterious criminal who now wants to get rid of Job. I actually read Under a Painted Sky by Stacey Lee a while ago, and I did really enjoy that. And finally, the last book I'm going to talk about today is Crown of Coral and Pearl by Mara Rutherford, and that comes out on September 1st. We have identical twins and a rival kingdom who has kind of taken over their kingdom in order to get their resources. There's like a cruel prince kind of character, and This one, again, I don't have a lot of information for. I just kind of skimmed the synopsis after hearing someone mention it, and I'm like, this sounds like something I would enjoy, so I added it to my TBR. Okay, you guys, so those are all of the books that I am really, really excited for in 2019. Of course, there are going to be more as they announce new titles and everything. Let me know what you guys are really looking forward to in 2019, like what releases you're excited about, and let me know if this, like, bullet point format was at all helpful, because, like, that's personally how I get interested in books, so I'm hoping that it works for some of you, too. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!